Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Film Club, where I am joined by an amazing guest to talk about a couple of classic spooky films for the spooky season. We're going to be talking about Event Horizon and The Colour Out of Space. And I'm joined by Dave Walker from MS Paints. Dave, how are you doing, mate?
I'm doing all right, mate. I'm feeling pretty good. We've got a nice selection of talkies to talk about, don't we? I think both of the Eldritch flavour. But yeah, it's good to be back on the Warhammer Film Club.
Well, thank you very much for coming again. I mean, people really enjoyed our chat, and we talked Alien 3 at length last time. And I think that may have put us in good stead to talk about Event Horizon, because there's plenty of Alien, I think, influence in the old Event Horizon.
There's certainly multiple other films that are basically just chat GPT'd into this film, aren't they?
I think so.
Yeah,
in a good way.
In a good way. Yeah, I think it was the last episode was good. I think people really vibed with it. I think we had a nice chemistry of two film school guys, like just stroking the shaft basically, but not being too pretentious about it. I think it was a nice mix.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have put it that way, but yeah, I think that's a fair shout. Although I think it's quite clear that you know what you're talking about, as opposed to me is bluffing my way through a lot of my old discovering that I didn't pay a lot of attention at uni and did not learn an awful lot, but did enjoy watching a lot of movies. So that's something, I think.
That's good. That's what film school is for, mate. Is watching a load of movies, and then realizing 20 years later you really fucked up by not paying attention. Yeah.
No, well, 20 years later, you then go, well, how can I make a podcast that includes any of this knowledge at all?
Yes, absolutely.
Even though my job is actually about Warhammer. So we discover ourselves at the Warhammer Film Club.
100%. I mean, all Warhammer YouTubers are just failed filmmakers or actors, aren't they? is what I'm told.
Well, we're going to be getting into the Colour Out of Space in a little bit, which an interesting Lovecraftian adaptation. But Event Horizon from 1997, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, before he was Paul W.S. Anderson, right? He's only credited as Paul Anderson on this film.
Oh, is he? Okay.
He is, yeah. And he would go on, of course, to make... he'd made Mortal Kombat already, which I'm sure many people love. He would go on to do the Resident Evil movies and sort of get very deep into Resident Evil cinematic lore. But this was quite early in his career. I think it's maybe his third film.
No. Keep going. Tell me what else he's made. Go on.
Well, he made Soldier.
Did he make Soldier?
He did Soldier. That was the following year, 1998. He did the Kurt Russell film Soldier, which allegedly, ostensibly takes place in the Blade Runner universe. So that may yet come up again in the future on the Warhammer Film Club, I imagine.
Yes. That fucking, because it's the spinner in the background, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. And I think he maybe mentions one of the battles that Roy Batty mentions, or something like that.
That feels like, in the Bible when Mary was clearly covering up that she'd had extramarital affairs. This feels Soldier feels like the props department left that shit in the background, and then they were like, oh no, it's part of the Blade Runner universe. Honest.
Yeah, definitely a bit of retroactive, like, okay, well, how can we explain this now that we've made a mistake? But yeah, he did, and I think he did. Oh, he did Three Musketeers, of course. So he also did with basically, a lot of movies that have maybe dubious special effects and some, high octane movies that not necessarily my cup of tea. I'm going to say that. Let's put it that way. But I think Event Horizon is probably the best film he's ever made, and I think there's some real merit to the old Event Horizon, like as just a good horror movie experience.
I think so. Yeah. I think Mortal Kombat is a surprise.
Right.
It's one of those I've watched. I think, not to sound like a wanky film student, but I watched it about 3 years ago on Laserdisc and was like, that's all right, that. I mean, it's pish. But that's tight. That is all right. And then the first Resident Evil film, which I did actually watch last week because I thought I'd just bang that on. I think that's surprisingly tight as well. Now
That's
that I,
for me the best of
yeah,
that franchise.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like there's some good stuff in that first one.
yeah,
Everyone always likes to talk about the laser chamber, the laser corridor. I think
yep,
that is a really good action scene, but I think there's
yes,
other good stuff in there as well.
100%, yeah, yeah. And I think this around this time, '97, he is hot shit. Like he's really
Yeah, I think
he.
he's on the way up, right? He's,
Oh
he's
yeah, yeah,
coming
yeah.
in as a new. I don't know how well Mortal Kombat did, but I think it did well enough to, get
Yes,
him a bit of fire underneath him and
yeah,
to get options. Resident Evil, I think, was probably a big
hmm,
deal at the time, right, when that was being adapted into a movie. So
yeah,
that's a good get. I don't think Soldier did particularly well. If it was a bit of a damp squib, that one.
yeah. Yeah. That feels like a blend into the background kind of
Yeah.
movie, just on paper. Um, but we're kind of in this '90s post. Stick with me here. A '90s post Star Trek Next Generation sort of sci-fi. Anything can be sci-fi. We'll give a sci-fi property any amount of money it wants, and we'll take a chance on it. Like
Mm.
the amount of sci-fi movies in the '90s is quite alarming. The amount that are summer blockbusters, Christmas blockbusters, given decent money with decent casts, like that kind of culminates in The Matrix, which is a wildly expensive film when you recognize that it's pretentious science fiction, essentially. And there's so many wonderful oddities that came out of that post TNG boom of,
Mm.
yeah, fucking sci-fi, people love it. That Event Horizon kind of can't exist outside of that boom. Have you seen Pandorum?
Yes, I have
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Similar kind of vibe.
Mm.
Doesn't feel as big. Doesn't feel as big in scope. Probably
Sure, much more
costs
claustrophobic and sort of contained.
just even in it's hard to describe.
Like
I
the
think there's
ambition as well.
I think ambition. I
Right.
think the final overall look of it just feels a bit naff, despite
Sure.
12 years of technological advancement and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this was an era of one and done
Mm,
blockbusters as well, wasn't it? So
yes.
there were a lot more like high concept. Sure,
Hmm.
there was franchise building, and people were like, "We're going to try and turn Lost in Space into a mega franchise, turn of the
I
century." But
forgot
like,
about that.
yeah, I mean, it's that kind of thing where they're like, "We will invest a lot of money in something
Hmm.
that's very conceptually very big."
Hmm.
A haunted house in space is eventually is the pitch
Yes.
for Event Horizon.
Yeah.
That is quite strange. That's quite a unique take, and yeah,
Hmm.
it obviously did cost a lot of money. I think the effects at the time and even
Yes.
now are still pretty good in some places. There's
Yes.
some cool stuff in there. So yeah, I can totally see what you mean. Actually, like the drive towards.
Hmm.
I mean, it was blockbuster era stuff as well, wasn't it? Where
Oh yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah.
people were going to the cinema
Yeah.
and they were open to different experiences. It
Yeah.
didn't have to be linked into a cinematic universe.
Yes.
It could just be what's on this
Hmm.
week. What's the big high
Yeah.
concept for this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Um, and we've got to talk about. It's a pretty stellar lineup, to be honest. There's people that had. I guess Sean Pertwee was quite obscure at the time.
Hmm.
Um, Sam Neill, a couple like 3 or 4 years off the back of Jurassic Park. Lawrence Fishburne,
Hmm.
who is, I think, just about a household name at this point, but it's pre-Matrix. But when you look at who is on the front cover, you're like, fuck yeah, man.
It's a good lineup. Yeah, whoever
Yeah.
the casting director has actually got a load of people who have like continued to be in lots of stuff
Mhm.
and continue to do great work.
Yes.
Like your Jason Isaacs and Sean
Oh yeah.
Pertwee's, just really good character actors who were
Yeah.
jobbing around at the time,
Yeah.
and this was one of their bigger earlier like credits essentially, wasn't
Yes.
it? Sort of put I don't know whether it put people on the map, but it was definitely making good use of proper
Yeah.
talent.
Yeah. Just reaffirming some good character actors in the space, essentially, that would go on to be household names.
Hmm.
And there are quite a few British people. I think Sam Neill is Australian, or is he
Yes,
Irish? Yes.
Australian. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, just unusual choices, and it kind of it's a very Alien 3 film in that
yeah,
it's shot at Pinewood, I believe.
right.
It's all practical sets. It's British character actors, aesthetically very similar. Alien 3 by way of Hellraiser, for sure.
Yes.
It's definitely our wheelhouse, this one. It's especially my wheelhouse. But we've got to talk about that baffling opening. I mentioned it to you when I was
Yeah,
watching
go
it.
on then. What's your take on this opening sequence?
It was, if Danny Elfman had scored the Tomb Raider movie, it
Right.
was really weird because the intro was the most 1997 thing I have ever seen. Like, the text, the kind of going through a wormhole, the VFX, the slightly techno, umpy pumpy spooky music.
Yep.
Like, and I had to look up who it was, and it's Michael Kamen. And Michael Kamen, every time I watch a film with his music, and I'm like, who the fuck has done this? And it's Michael Kamen. I'm like, you're like 70 years old at this point. You are making some pretty out there stuff.
So Cayman's career though is absolutely fascinating, I think, right? And he
Yeah,
was because for I mean, it must be like 20 years where he's seemed to be doing every other movie
yeah,
as the composer. So many credits,
yeah,
and you're right. It's really wild. He's all over the place. But there's a couple of
yeah.
his scores that I think are
Yes,
genuinely timeless. I think he did Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves,
yes,
which is truly incredible.
yeah.
But then he did a different version of the Three Musketeers, which was the 1993 Disney Musketeers film with Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen.
Yeah,
I love that score.
yeah,
That is absolutely brilliant work. Like
yeah.
that, there's some really triumphant kind of
Yes.
like moments in that score. But then he also did like X-Men as well.
Yeah.
So
And
he's
Die
he's,
Hard.
he's like jumping all over to the weird techno spaces and all sorts, right?
Yeah, yeah. Man's just vibing. He's doing what he wants, and
Yeah.
it's great. But also, I'm sat there at the start of this film like, this is not what I remember. This
It
is
is that particular opening track is
Mhm.
the strangest on the score,
Yes,
and I think you're right. It's very 1997.
it
But there's
is.
just
Yeah, yeah,
there's a real time and place to it because it was an effort, I think, to kind of go. They were trying to go futuristic with
yes,
the score,
yeah.
but that fails so completely that it just now feels very 97 instead.
Feels hard dated. Like if you
Yeah.
put that on a PlayStation 1 commercial, I wouldn't be
Yes. Yeah. It's that
surprised.
kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really, really, really oddball. But once you get into the third act of the film, it kind of anchors it back. And I
Mm.
remember what decade I'm in, and I'm like, this is Paul W.S. Anderson, and we got to cheapen everything just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is possibly the closest to a Warhammer film in the Warhammer Film Club that we will actually ever talk about. In that it is, I mean, it's never been officially stated, but at a Comic Con
Mm.
in like the mid 2000s, Mr. W.S. Anderson was directly asked about it. And I can't remember where I found this interview, the transcript of it, but he was directly asked, this is very Warhammer, like with the warp and all that and Geller Fields and everything. And he was like, yeah. We were at uni in the late 80s and into the early 90s, and we just smoked a lot of weed and we played a lot of Warhammer. This is a Warhammer movie. Like, literally. We took what we liked and we made a film. Sorry.
Yeah, because the screenwriter Philip Eisner is also like is now deleted because I was trying to find it. I was like, I'll put this up on screen. This will be perfect. But he did a tweet that was like very similar. Was like, yeah, I play a lot of 40K.
Mhm.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think you're right. I think this is until an official 40K film comes out. This is going to be one of the ones that feels most aligned. I mean, there are obviously it's very different to 40K because it is set in like 2047 or something around then. So like it's a completely different timeline,
Yeah.
or a completely different time, but on the same timeline, broadly speaking, and that
Yes.
is most evident, you could argue, in the warp and the way the warp works, and basically, the MacGuffin that causes all of the events of the movie being the event horizon and the drive
Yes.
at the heart of the ship, right? Because ultimately, I mean, the plot of the film being this ship has a very special new gravity drive that does something to space. I mean, there's a very cool, very sort of quoted and reused thing about folding a piece of paper and poking a pencil through it and saying that's how this ship moves through space, which is quite a cool way of describing it. But what actually has happened is that when it folds space and goes through the middle, it goes through hell, and it's come out 7 years later, and our plucky crew of salvage and rescue experts have come to find it, and they find a haunted house
Yes.
that's got demons floating about in it.
Yes, essentially.
And that's basically the whole movie. That's the whole plot, essentially, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, all of that warp stuff is very much the 40k warp. It feels in a lot of ways like the exact same thing would happen in the 41st millennium if you didn't have a Gellerfield, if you didn't have astropaths, if you just dropped your ship into warp. This is what's going to happen to you guys too.
Yeah, pretty much. It's I see it almost weirdly as if the 40k timeline hadn't been so needlessly filled in, where everybody's fucking bowel movements, even minor characters, like in the same way that the Star Wars expanded universe did.
Right. Yeah.
Then I would happily see this as like a prequel thing.
Sure.
Like just non-canonically, but
yeah. So officially, it can't be, right? It's not made or paid for or financially linked in any way. But yeah, non-canonically, it feels very much like a prequel, and there's still like 28,000 years before the Horus Heresy for you to fit this in. So I think you could probably get away with it and be like, sure, that's basically what would have happened.
Yes.
And that leaves the door. We'll talk about the ending later, but it does leave the door open for an Event Horizon appearance in the 41st millennium. Dropping out of the warp again, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Event Horizon itself as a ship, first of all, very cool name, just really good, and the design of that ship, I think, is really, really good. So it's a model. They've done proper model work to build it. Looks amazing.
Yeah.
Really has like to me at least, it kind of feels, you were saying about Next Generation, it's got a post Star Trek like ship design to it. It feels very Klingon in some ways, with the big back end with the wings, kind of like a bird of prey if you stretched its neck out, and then you had a big chunky head at the other end of the neck. But yeah, really, a really interesting design, because you do have this very long neck section, which is just basically a bridge or a corridor.
Yes.
That goes from the front of the ship with all of the bridge and all the command areas, and then the back of the ship, which we only really see one space, which is the actual gravity drive itself.
Yes.
Which is the most like horrendously like very, very gothic. Like health and safety around this thing would be a nightmare, because it's just a big moving ball with all of these moving parts and massive spikes sticking out everywhere.
Yes.
Very
Everything about
looking.
it is so terribly done in terms of its functional design in universe, and the fact that there's just a pool of coolant on the floor that you just fall in, no fucking guardrails. That's well out of order. Like, as soon as I got on this ship, like if I was part of that Lois and Clark crew, I'd turn to Sam Neill and be like, I don't want you anywhere near me, mate. You are getting back on that fucking ship, and you are going to sit there quietly, because you are tweaked, mate. You are messed up.
Yeah, I mean, it works really well, obviously, for the movie, because because it is just absurdly dangerous. Even down to like they have to get into what are essentially like Jeffries tubes at certain points and like climb into the mechanism around the gravity drive. There is no indication of which of these random spiked, like tesseracted kind of pieces will open up and be a Jeffries tube, and which ones are just death spikes. You have to, you either know or you do not know.
Yes. And you know that the designer of this ship, Sam Neill, his character, made the conscious choice for it to look like that, because as soon as they go into the ducting and to the inner mainframes and workings of this thing, it's all backlit, like paneled circuit boards, which is a beautiful look. But it's really kind of techie once you get inside, like literally the arteries of the ship. So he made the conscious choice. You know what? Yeah, make that really horrible Put loads of spikes there. Do you want a guardrail there? Only if it's got spikes. Well, we've used the spike budget. It's like, oh no, I'm not doing a handrail then. No, no way. But yeah, like if we're talking like cosmetics of the ship, everything about it, like the bridge is very Klingon. The bridge is very like Star Trek 3 onwards, the
Right.
one with Christopher Lloyd, like the
Sure.
design of a Klingon bridge. Lots of hard angles, like the armrests on the chairs are just like polyhedronal rather than having a cushion on them.
Yeah.
And I think the med bay was what interested me the most, in that it was a morgue more than it was a med bay.
Right.
And that was such a great choice, in that it looks like a coroner's room
Hmm.
in the like the 1930s tile work is how I would describe it.
Right.
And everything, all the columns have got like a rounded
Yeah.
bottom rather than just going straight down like a Tony Hawk's level almost. But it's a weird Art Deco meets brutalism meets high Gothic,
Yeah.
and I think the production design of this film is what makes it last and live rent free in my head at times. I will probably forget most things about this film apart from that intro music and the look of set design and models.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a big part of that, I think, as well, is exactly what you said before about like building the sets and like actually filming on real sets, having designed them and built them, and then they're reacting to them because they're physically there. Building the ships themselves, so you do get the Event Horizon and the Lewis and Clark. Like those two different, like those physical elements, I think do add a lot, and they are
Yes.
part of the reason the special effects still work today as well. You know, there's some great CG, like I don't want to say early CGI, but you know, obviously earlier in the CGI journey, that is really good, like zero G stuff of like things floating around before they reactivate the gravity. Even that still looks pretty good today. I think
Yeah.
they've done a good job with that, and they're quite sparing in its use, so that's
Yes.
very effective. But the sets, they're nicely designed. They feel tangible. They feel real, and that makes the whole movie work better, I think. For a horror film, especially, like having something more tangible and having the actors in a space
Yes.
and then be haunted by something that you can't see, so much more effective than, you know, if they film this in the volume or something and none of it's real, well, then none of it's going to feel real, you know. And it's a real struggle, I think, for a lot of modern sci-fi to make the ships and the environments and the planets feel like real places, because they're literally not real places, because they don't film often or as often in the real spaces. And I think it is hugely important to making this film work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the late 90s is kind of like a Goldilocks zone, I think, of films shot on actual film using characterful lenses, but done to a degree out of necessity. Like I bang on about anamorphic all the time to people, because I like to shoot in anamorphic because I think it makes things look like a film. But there's something to shooting on film stock with anamorphic. So the way that lens engages with light and how it reacts to highlights in the skin on people that are sweating on camera or whatever, how literally lights are perceived and how it merges physical, practical lights on a location with the rest of the objects around it. It just puts everything together really nicely. But you've also got digital compositing, which is not new, but it's in its infancy ish. So
Right.
you've got films shot by people who really know really know what they're doing. But you've got this new digital technology that isn't taking over, but it is accenting what is there. And you get almost seamless transitions. I think there's a shot early on of Sam Neill working on like a space station, and the camera is rotating and pulling out
Yeah.
from a practical set, and then it pulls out to see the space station, which is a model,
Hmm.
and I think it took them like 9 months to make that one shot. There was a whole VFX department just doing that one shot.
Right.
But it is. I don't think it's dated. I don't think it looks shit. And they do it again like 3 or 4 times, I think, out of the front of the Event Horizon ship,
Sure. Yeah.
and it just does not miss a beat at all. At no point does my brain go, "That's not real."
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that opening shot is quite disorientating as well, like on
Mhm.
purpose, I think.
Yes.
And because you are getting, well, I mean, even like you say, Sam Neill, I think the sense is that he was already affected in some way. Whether or
Hmm.
not he was consciously like, I'm going to build a gateway to the warp.
Hmm.
Something had, he was off kilter. Obviously, he's
Hmm.
he's he's a widower. He's lost his
Hmm.
wife. That comes back and becomes a factor later on.
Hmm.
Maybe that in some way influenced some of his work and some of his decisions.
Yes.
But yeah, with that opening shot, which is great and it looks really nice,
Hmm.
it instantly says this guy is not like stable,
Yeah.
and he's the guy we're following to the death ship. So
Yes.
good luck, everybody.
Yeah. 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 There's something very off kilter about him. There's something not well about him. But as we learn later, as like I think when we're in second act territory,
Hmm.
there's the idea that the ship is alive and it is possessing people essentially, like
Hmm.
kind of demonic possession with the younger crew members. I'll call him Rookie. He might even be called Rookie in the film. I don't fucking know. Um, where he's not speaking in tongues, but he's speaking in riddles, and he walks himself into an airlock,
Hmm.
and they're trying to convince him to come back and stop. And then there's one of the film's better moments where the ship just kind of disengages from his brain, and then
Yeah.
he's just a scared kid in a decompressing airlock. And they do it again with Sam Neill later on when he's having his full on "I've got no fucking eyes" freak out in the captain's chair just before he gets the big tag,
Hmm.
where he comes back to who he was and everything's decompressing around him, and he's like, "Why can't I see what is happening? Can someone help me?" And it's like, fuck, that is, if you can hear it amongst all the commotion, it is crazy just how effective that little on off switch with the ship is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bleak. It's really because that's
Yeah.
and that's exactly what you want from an entity as evil as this.
Yeah.
Like it is just doing that for its own entertainment and just
Yeah.
to be cruel,
Yeah.
essentially. And that's your Hellraiser element as well, isn't it? The
Yes.
ship itself, it's a Cenobite. It just is enjoying the pleasure and
Yes.
of the pain and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that moment in the airlock is really good, I think, because
Hmm.
yeah, he is just in his regular clothes. He's been in a
Hmm.
coma. He sort of gets up, walks himself into the airlock, and starts
Hmm.
decompressing it. And everyone's on the other side, and they're like, "No, don't do it."
Hmm.
Um, and then yeah, you get that real moment where the possession drops, and he's just
Yes.
terrified. And then it actually does open the door, and he's blown out into space.
Yes.
And then Lawrence Fishburne sort of manages to grab him and get him back inside,
Yeah.
and we don't know if they save him. He's still in a coma, and that's kind of the end of his story by the end of the movie. But yeah, he is blown out into the airlock,
Hmm.
and I wondered if that is possible to survive. Like, is there any way in which you can go into actual space
Hmm.
and not instantly die? Like, when
Yeah.
would you just atomize in the vacuum of space, or what?
I mean, very, very similar film, Sunshine from 2007,
Sure.
does pretty much, they repeat this spot. Not to use a wrestling analogy, they use this spot where a guy flies out of the airlock and someone hits him with a Goldberg spear and puts him back in the airlock, I think.
Right.
But I think you can.
Some guy, I forget. I'll put it in the description below. But there's
Mhm.
a chap who's got a very large YouTube
Mhm.
following, who like investigates. I think he investigates the science of things in
Okay.
movies and whatnot. And he believes that your best bet is exactly what happens in the movie,
Yes.
which is that if you breathe out, so you get all the air out of you that you can,
Mhm.
you get as small as possible, and you
Mhm.
get as close to the interior airlock door as possible.
Yep.
That means that less air is going to be pushing you out of the
Mhm.
airlock, so you'll move more slowly.
Mhm.
Less air is going to be trying to escape from your body, so
Yep.
you're not going to get torn apart by it and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But yes, you would have to get back inside very, very quickly, otherwise you'd freeze
Yes.
to death.
Yeah. 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 It's
So
basic.
It's
brutal decompression mixed with -8 billion degrees kind of thing. Shut your
right.
fucking eyes as well if you want to be able to
Yes,
see
yeah.
when you get
Shut your
back.
eyes, cover your ears. Yeah, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so apparently Event Horizons is bang on the money from the science side of things on that.
Scientifically accurate. Let's talk about another character who drifts off into space who is not scientifically
Okay.
accurate.
Sure, yeah.
So we've got whilst basically they're fucking around in the ship and Sam Neill's being creepy, we've got some damage to our exploration vessel, the Lois and Clark. Or is it Lewis and Clark? Lewis
Lewis
and
and
Clark.
Clark, I think,
Sorry,
yeah.
I'm thinking of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of
Yeah, of
Superman.
course.
Sorry. The Lewis and Clark. So you've got Sean Pertwee angrily smoking and putting rivets back in his ship to fix it.
Yep.
And you've got our one of our survivors. I'm gonna IMDb his name
I think it's
because
Cooper.
is he Cooper?
Cooper. Yeah, I think that's right.
Cooper, who basically it's 1997. I'm going to choose my words carefully, but 1997, he fills a prerequisite role. Let's just say that's kind of what he does. For the time, that's the Hollywood machine.
Sure.
Who does get blown out into space. They're in the upper atmosphere of, is it Venus? Not Venus.
Neptune, I think.
Neptune. He gets blown off the ship that he's fixing, and there is a fucking stunning shot of him holding onto some debris from the Lewis and Clark, very far away from Neptune to the point where you can see the full sphere of Neptune. And he basically talks his exposition of what he's going to do. He anime characters it, and he says, if I blow all the air out of my oxygen tank, I can blow myself back to the event horizon. And there's this shot of him that is almost like Wicked Witch of the West, where he's just flying back towards Neptune, and you just hear him say, "Look out, motherfuckers, I'm coming back."
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely maybe an excess of sass in that particular sequence, and it is very of its time. I think that's very true. And I think
Yes.
also for me, one of the points where the wheels sort of start to come off a little bit in the third act, because you stretch his believability, but it's also just, I don't, for me, like like wisecracking in this sort of increasingly intense environment,
Yes.
where things have gone wrong, like things just very scientific things like a ship malfunctioning or exploding, and then also the horror things and the supernatural things that we're seeing as well. So like then having a bit of a sort of comedic relief seems strange, and then also the role that he then plays in the finale just is sort of not really relevant either. So it's a very odd choice to me that he makes it back at all.
Yeah, it's very, considering how, I guess, sober the first two acts of the film are,
Yeah.
and how grounded, and it's not hard sci-fi at all, but there's an understanding and an adherence to the physics and the laws of the universe they've established. Like the internal logic has been set in Act 1, basically. So Act 3 just decides, fuck, yeah, we've got to get bums on seats. We've got to tick some summer blockbuster tick boxes with this. And it tries to shift gear into action.
Yes.
I think is the issue, and it's been so effective at being like a niche horror film at this point. It's done so well. And just that moment, you're like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a very, very fair point. So, I've enjoyed Event Horizon many times over the years. I think it's a good, blockbuster, bit of popcorn, does something that not many other films do in terms of its, sci-fi horror sort of, like conceptually, it's just an interesting and quite rare idea. But I've always had those misgivings about the ending, which I'll come back to. But like revisiting now, I enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to.
Yes.
And some of that's nostalgia, some of that's thinking back to the last time I saw it 20 years ago or whatever. But actually, those first two acts, the first act especially, are really well done. They're really effective.
Hmm.
You know, there's a couple
Yeah.
of like Sam Neill does a particularly odd yell at one point when he wakes from a dream. So
Yeah.
which is just incredible. It's incredible. So there's a few weird things like that, but like it does something that I think is really important in horror films, which is actually spending time with the principal characters, just just doing their jobs and living their lives.
Hmm.
Like loads of films, it's horror films especially, jump straight into the like meat
Hmm.
of the plot before
Yeah.
you've really spent any time learning.
Yes.
Well, who is this and why do I care about them?
Yeah.
This film, very much in the Aliens sort of playbook, is okay. Well, we've got a crew. We're just going to spend some time with the crew, you know, chelping at each other and
Yeah.
complaining and not getting on, and you
Yeah.
have these really good dynamics, and very quickly you're like, okay, well that person doesn't like that person, but
Yes.
they everyone's
Yeah.
got to work together and what have you. But yeah, the actual the dynamics between those different characters and
Hmm.
spending so many scenes just them being a crew working
Hmm.
together, I think that really does ground it in a really nice way.
Yes.
You also get to admire the sets that they've built as a
Hmm.
because you're just spending time like having briefings and having chats and stuff.
Yes.
So like the actual there's the actual bridge of the Lewis and Clark with the captain's chair that kind of is like suspended from the ceiling and he's wobbling about.
As soon as that takes a hard right to like dodge a deer in the middle of space, you are falling out of that fucking chair, man. I'm sorry. The way it just wobbles every time, you can just see poor Lawrence Fishburne, who is a big boy.
Yeah.
He's a tall, well built man, just kind of in that weird high chair,
Yeah.
just trying not to move to make it look like you can see it wobble.
Yeah. Yeah. But conceptually it's a really cool idea.
Yes.
Like if you drew that in some concept art, you'd be like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's cool and sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's really good. But then there's also stuff like, great acting choices. Even like Lawrence Fishburne goes down slides down the ladder between
Mhm.
the decks on the bridge.
Yeah.
It just feels like, yeah, this guy lives here. This is
Yeah.
his ship. He knows what
Yes.
he's doing. All of that stuff, really effective. And then the early like horror stuff, the hauntings of
Mhm.
it. So there's a couple of characters who are like haunted by their past mistakes or lost
Mhm.
loved ones and things like that. And it plays like a ghost, like a
Yes.
haunted house with a ghost in it.
Yeah.
There's like one character who's Peters, who's like lost a child or is her child back home and is not
Yes.
well. And she sees him running about in the
Mhm.
distance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, really well done.
Yeah.
I'm fully on board for all of that.
Yeah.
And it builds up, you start to learn more about what happened on the ship, and it's just a
Mhm.
great, like conceptually, just this ship went to hell, and now it's come back,
Mhm.
and that's really scary.
Yeah.
That works. That works on me. I'm like, yes, that's great.
Yes.
I mean, actually, there's a apparently the original director's cut was like 30 minutes longer, if not more, and they
Yes.
included a lot more of like what the original crew got up to.
Yes.
I'm kind of glad that that's been cut because I think that just the snippets you see
Yeah.
of like, okay, here's some like Slaneshi style,
Yeah.
debauched pleasure and pain, Cenobites, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Just seeing it in moments allows so much more of it to live in your head, and
Yes.
that's going to be more horrific than anything they could actually show.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Fully on board. And then Act 3 is, we go in a slightly different direction, I think.
Yeah. It's kind of it's nicely. The start of Act 3 is really nicely done. It's initiated with it's a culmination of everything you've learnt so far about the ship and Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne in, like you said, the little move down the ladders, and there's lots of subtle things that basically even just it's blunt force in some of the dialogue where he says, "I'm not interested in your shtick. Give me the information I need." He's pretty much no nonsense, and his crew comes first, and that is hammered into you from the first 2 minutes of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Neill's obsession is with the loss of his wife, but also he's now seeing the loss of the ship that he made returned. He's kind of fulfilling that part of his what's missing in his life, essentially, with this ship, and he's assigned a female attribute to it, etc., etc. All of that is so nicely set up that when you get that, let's fucking ship up and we're leaving, and Sam Neill says, "She won't let you leave," and fades into the darkness. That is such a fucking beautiful little exchange. And then it all kind of falls apart
Mm.
and undoes itself and becomes not crap, but tactless. I think tactless is the word, considering how patient the film has been so far.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I totally agree. And that
Mhm.
is a moment where it is definitely felt
Mhm.
right. Yeah, and because I think this is true of like Hollywood and it's blockbuster filmmaking at the end of the day, a certain
Yes.
type of blockbuster filmmaking.
Hmm.
You see it in horror and you see it in comedy quite a lot.
Hmm.
When you come to Act Three,
Hmm.
and it's like, okay, we've done all of the slow build stuff. We had loads of runway, so we used it
Yeah.
wisely. But Act Three needs to deliver on
Yes.
a big moment.
Yeah.
And actually, you see it in RPG scenarios as well,
Yeah.
because you want everyone to have their adrenaline pumping at the end of the
Hmm.
movie. You need there to be some culmination of everything that's come before it.
Hmm.
A lot of the time, that ends up just being a big chase.
Yes.
How many comedy films end with like a random car chase out of
Yeah.
nowhere? And it's just like, why is this? Why are we ending our comedy film on this? We're not an
Yeah.
action film.
Yeah.
And horror films sometimes can do the same thing. And actually, you mentioned Sunshine before. That also does, follows Event Horizon very closely,
Yes.
in that you end up in a place that is, okay, well, we've got this ship that has gone to some hell
Hmm.
dimension.
Yeah.
It can do anything it wants, and what it wants to do is just pure evil and really
Hmm.
out there, wild stuff, just mess with people's
Hmm.
minds. It's doing cool stuff like possessing people and throwing them out of airlocks.
Hmm.
Peter's death actually is amazing, where she thinks she sees her son, so she steps
Yes.
forward, and then it's actually a sheer drop, and she falls into that
Hmm.
coolant at the bottom of the gravity drive. And then the creepy like kid just watches her, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
good. So the ship can do all of this kind of cool stuff, but in
Yes.
the end, it spends the entire third act just being like, "Oh well, Sam Neill's my guy now," and he's just running around with his, he's got guns and he's just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
sort of laughing to himself and all sorts. It goes too big in
Yes.
like reducing everything. All of this horror, all of this potential is just a weird guy with
Yes.
scars running about.
Yeah.
Um, which is a bit, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, it is saved for me by the actual end, which
Yeah. Okay.
we can explore. But the overall, the most of the third act being like Sam Neill is like made up with special effects, and he's just running about.
Hmm.
It's probably not that much of the film, but it feels too big.
Yes. Yeah.
It just takes it to a place that's not as interesting as
Yes.
everything that's happened up to this point. I quite liked, I will say, when
Hmm.
he goes on to the Lewis and Clark and has like planted a bomb, and
Yes. That's
Sean
nice.
Pertwee is just like, not on my ship, mate, no way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
and he refuses to get off the ship because he absolutely
Yes.
doesn't want to go back onto the Event Horizon.
Yeah.
Like we even saw him earlier just abandon Peters, not in a malicious way,
Hmm.
just in a like, you've got to keep up with me because I'm getting off the ship now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so he's like searching everywhere for the bomb, and then he
Hmm.
finds it with obviously 5 seconds before it goes.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
like as a sequence, that's pretty good. But yeah, some of the other stuff, like the big action scene on the bridge where you've kind of
Yes.
got the nail gun, and
Hmm.
I don't know, that doesn't work as well for me. That stuff.
No, I would be because it's such a mental set piece as well, with like the front window blowing out,
Yeah,
and then Cooper makes his triumphant return and
yeah,
comes through a decompressing window or something like that. Uh, it's the, the best kind of. I mean, Aliens does this, and obviously Aliens is kind of like a perfect blueprint for how you do high concept horror, and it's establish universe, establish how dangerous the opposition to your lead is, and the last act should kind of be a 1v1, and all of the established threat and danger to life is then against your final girl, to kind
mm,
of paraphrase essentially. It's how Halloween does it as well. It's how Alien, the first one, does it. It's This is how dangerous the opposing force is, Michael Myers or whatever. Now you've got your lead against that one thing. It's almost 1v1. And I would have been happy to see that almost literally translated where not 1v1, because Lawrence Fishburne's whole thing is that he's traumatized by giving up on one of his old crew members. His thing now is to save his current crew members. To have him essentially versus Sam Neill. Sam Neill walking around the ship with a nail gun, I'm not opposed to. But if they made it like stalking the corridors, if they grounded it in the chemistry between the two characters rather than doing this insane set piece on the bridge with decompression and shit, that would be very tight, and I think it would be terrifying. A blind Sam Neill just hunting you throughout the halls of his own ship is what I would want.
Sure, yeah, more Michael Myers probably would have made it more interesting. I guess they ran out of time because a lot happens on that bridge. Because you also get Jolie Richardson's character, who's like the second in command, she disappears for like a big chunk of time.
Yeah.
It's not explained where she is during any of that. Like, it's okay, everyone back to the main ship. We need to get off because Sam Neill's gone wild and things have gotten really bad. And then you see some of the stuff happen. We don't see what she does, and then loads of people die, and then Lawrence Fishburne just finds her again on the bridge.
Yes, she's conveniently. Me and my friends call it the Giles knocked unconscious. Like the majority of the first 3 seasons of Buffy the Vampire Slayer were driven by Giles being conveniently unconscious.
Yeah. For
a plot dedicated amount of time. She's just found unconscious on the bridge, and Lawrence Fishburne gives her a nudge. He's like, "You're right." She's like, "Oh, whew. What happened there?"
Yeah, she's also impervious to decompression because everyone else is going flying, and she's just, because she's on the other side. The door's not closed, but she's on the other side of the threshold. Yes. She's totally unaffected by the decompression. Yes.
In character generation, her poise stat was just leveled up above anything else. Like, you could hit her with a truck and she wouldn't move. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that, it kind of goes into a place where it's a bit too actiony, and it's a bit too over the top, maybe. Not that the rest hadn't been over the top, but it'd been over the top in a more interesting way, for me at least. But where it's saved, I think, and you actually walk away with a really strong final couple of moments, is that you do get the Fishburne like redemption, which is that, so they're gonna, and also the reason for the entire ship's design is like revealed, which is we're going to blow apart the front, which becomes the lifeboat, and the back, which will go to hell.
Yes.
So there's bombs all the way along the entire corridor. Fishburne's going to set them all off. Can't do it automatically, so has to do it manually. Classic. Ends up in the gravity drive space with Sam Neill. Yeah. And then he still blows the ship because he wants to redeem himself from having, in a previous life, he'd let a crewmate die. So this time he's going to take the hit himself, save everybody who's left, and then he's going to go to hell with Sam Neill.
Yes.
And that's the end of Fishburne's story. You then get a little coda where Jolie Richardson, wakes up and has had a bad dream, and maybe I think you get a Sam Neill appearance, which may or may not be a dream.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that classic thing. But the real ending being like Fishburne's character saying, "No, you know what? Take me to hell. You're not having my crew." And that's cool. That's like it's bleak. It's a sad ending because Fishburne's character basically does nothing wrong throughout the entire movie, which I love. I like competent characters, and I like them making the right choices. There's several points in time where he's like, "No, the right thing to do is this," and he's correct. And even down to like, we're going to get off of this ship as soon as we realize, oh wait, this ship's been to hell. Actually, they're like, well, we better go off then. And how many movies would just be like characters who are like, oh yeah, it's been to hell, but we should really do some more research.
The Prometheus approach. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What's that? It's got 8 legs.
Yeah.
Stick your dick in it, see what happens.
Trying to pet it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what makes a lot of the characters very likable, and it's sad when they go, is because a lot of them don't do anything stupid or wrong. There's going back to the internal logic, a lot of the characters are very practically minded, and they do the truckers in space thing,
Mhm.
where they're not only relatable, but not many of them are done for the sake of advancing MacGuffins.
Yeah.
Like three of them are just like, yeah, no, we're leaving. We are going to fix this ship, and then we're going. We're
Yes.
going. Job's fucked. We're off. And again, Lawrence Fishburne, very practical, very logical. I think there's only a couple of moments in the film where characters do stupid stuff, but it's stupid stuff because their brains being played with by a living hell ship. So pretty much all of the characters that get the tag, it feels something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I say, I enjoyed revisiting it, and I think
Mm.
as a film, it is a good time.
Hmm.
And even with those excesses that maybe aren't quite to my taste,
Hmm.
it still delivers on a solid sci-fi horror
Yeah.
premise.
Yeah.
And I am really surprised actually, because this is getting on to, we're 20 plus years old now, this
Hmm.
film,
Yeah.
heading towards 30.
Hmm.
And I don't think, and I may be wrong, I may be misremembering, but I don't think there is any other like haunted house in space in this way, film wise. I think there's a few games that tackle it. I can't think of any other movies off the top of my head that like take this
Not
approach.
not ones that aren't Roger Corman shit, but yeah.
Right.
uh, I no, no. In my head, I know there is, but I couldn't name
Yeah,
them.
and maybe there is, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm just misremembering. But it is like, it tends to be more like your Pandorums
Mm.
or your
Yeah.
Sunshines or what have you, where
Hmm.
there's elements that resemble this,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of TV shows have done essentially this kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you're thinking even to like Killjoys on the
Yeah.
Sci-Fi
Yeah.
Channel, if you remember that, they did an episode that was
Yeah.
basically
Yeah. Yeah.
Event Horizon space station
Yes.
thing. Um, but yeah, it feels like it would be ripe for
Yeah.
a modern take on the haunted house in space.
Yes. Absolutely. I think if we're being specific to distance it from Pandorum, I think this has for the first two acts has an air of class to it, which makes it more like a 40s film. Like it's the old dark house in space, if
Mm,
that makes sense. Like
sure.
like if Boris Karloff tipped up at the end of his career in this, I'd be like, I mean, I think he was dead by then, but if he tipped up, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, this is right. This feels so right. It's got almost that Universal Monsters vibe to it
Sure.
in some ways, in terms of its grandeur and its classiness
Mm,
for most of it. Yeah,
sure.
yeah, it was a good shout. Do you mind if I asked why you picked it?
Well, I mean, this kind of emerged from our own conversation. So really, it is 40K
Yeah.
adjacent, and it is just well worth exploring
Hmm.
as a 40K. Like we say, it is the most 40K film, even though it's not 40K at all.
Hmm.
It's one of the ones that kind of has the probably the closest claim or the strongest claim on any kind of canonicity, I
Yes.
think. So yeah, it definitely feels like it is a worthy
Mm.
Warhammer Film Club film to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
There is our second film that we're going to chat about,
Yes.
which is for different reasons also a worthy conversation piece, I think. So this
Hmm.
one is The Color Out of Space. It's a
Hmm.
2019 adaptation of an HP Lovecraft horror short
Yes.
story.
Yes.
And again, there is a certain something of the Warhammer universe to it,
Hmm.
because this concerns itself with a meteorite that lands on a farm
Hmm.
that is an otherworldly color, a color that no one has ever seen before on Earth.
Yes.
And the color itself is in some way
Hmm.
this kind of living thing, an entity, and it starts to affect everything around it, from the
Hmm.
ground and the wildlife to the people who live on the
Hmm.
farm, as portrayed by
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
And doing a very fun Nicolas Cage performance in this
Yes.
movie, I
Yes.
think.
He is definitely Nicolas Cage in this film, and that is all fine by me. So this is a weird one because I remember when this came out and it was just kind of announced. In fact, no, it just appeared like it was made and it was done. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'll pop for a cheap and cheerful Lovecraft adaptation. I've watched some Full Moon Entertainment. I've seen some New World Pictures in my time. If it's shit, it's shit, but it's a good time. And then I thought, okay, I'll have a look who's in it, what the crack is. Nicolas Cage. Oh, okay, sure. I mean, he's on his comeback tour. This is Oscar-winning Nicolas Cage. Like he was a real actor at one point. And then I saw it was directed by Richard Stanley,
Hmm.
and then I was like, "Oh fuck, you've you've been gone a long time, my friend. You are the event horizon of this situation." So I won't linger on it too much, but I'm a a weird Richard Stanley fan in that
Okay.
I am I am anything he's done, I'm into it. Like Hardware Mark 13. Don't know if you've ever seen that.
I've not seen it, but I've heard it's worth a watch.
That might even be worth us talking about next
Okay.
time. It's it's one of those weird uh, things of self cannibalization where he's ripped the film off essentially from a 2000 AD story,
Right.
and obviously then that feeds back into the culture of people who make 2000 AD and people at Games Workshop then watching this film and then recycle it into their own ideas, and then it's self cannibalizing essentially.
Sure.
But that was basically Terminator made for a tenner in the post-apocalypse with the singer from Fields of the Nephilim dressed as a wasteland cowboy. It's nonsense, but it's fantastic.
Right.
And then he made Dust Devil, which is a film set and made in South Africa in the Namib Desert. These are all worth your time
Hmm.
because they feel like this film that we're talking about in that the logical steps and the filmmaker's hallmarks and trademarks are they're a through line, despite there being almost a 30-year, a 25-year break in his career.
Right.
Because yeah, Dust Devil is fantastically just otherworldly in the same sense that this is, in that there's your antagonist and your driving force is a concept more than it is a physical object. In Dust Devil, it's a guy who is a hitchhiker in a trench coat with a cowboy hat.
Right.
Again, more wasteland cowboys, but he's an elemental force. He's an African myth. And then his career ended with The Island of Dr. Moreau,
Sure.
which is a fucking weird film. Have you ever seen that one?
That's the only one of his films that or that he's been involved with that I've seen besides this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So apparently that is the film that just basically broke him. It ended his career.
Yeah, I
Like
don't think he even made very much of it. I think he was
no,
on set for a couple of weeks, right? And then it was
yeah,
taken away from him.
a couple of weeks and basically production company interference. Just they sold him the dream and they gave him everything, and then essentially the choke chain went on as
Hmm.
soon as they started making it, and he didn't handle that very well because he's a young, passionate, punky filmmaker making just like wild sci-fi, crazy films, almost art house films, and he just kind of his mind just kind of breaks,
Hmm.
and they hand the production over to another director and they reconceptualize a lot of it, and a lot of people just didn't tell Marlon Brando no, and he ends up in that weird scene dressed like the Pope with an ice bucket on his head talking to a monkey. Fucking weird film. But they found Richard Stanley like halfway through production, just a production he was no longer attached to. They found him in the fucking jungle, just starved and high off his nut on like tribal herbs and stuff.
Right.
Like he was just in the jungle while they were making this fucking film, so I'm told.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's an odd one, and he comes back to do like comes out of directing retirement. He's done some shorts, but he comes out of directing retirement for this. And last note on Island of Dr. Moreau, I don't know where I got them, but I have concept art for this. Original
Right.
concept art for his Dr. Moreau. I don't know where I got them from. I
Wow.
have, yeah, I have a couple of bits and bobs from his films, like just knickknacks and props. But the concept art of his Dr. Moreau is fucking nuts. Like dual wielding Uzi hyena people.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, I need to get that shit framed because it's like
Yeah.
it's amazing stuff. But yes, sorry, that was my Richard Stanley tangent.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting figure. I mean, like you say,
Yeah.
20 plus years sort of on the outs and came back for this film. Apparently, they were going to do a handful of Lovecraft adaptations. Like
Yes.
he'd sort of been percolating on it for a long time.
Hmm.
This is the only one that has been made. I
Yes.
believe, and I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I believe like some difficulties came out from whether or not he was a good guy, and that's caused some problems with some of the later production, and that's why none of the
Yes.
other films have been released. But this film itself
Hmm.
is a really interesting exploration. I think Lovecraft difficult to turn into movies at all because of
Yes.
the kind of the entities, the evils that
Hmm.
you're dealing with. This film is a good stab at making it work, I think.
Have you got any, before we dive into it, have you got any other Lovecraft favorites or
In
films
terms
that
of
aren't shit?
films,
Yeah, yeah.
um, off the top of my head, no.
Mhm.
I was reading the other day about I've been going through these old issues. I don't know if you remember Fear magazine. This was
Yeah.
a magazine from the 80s that was like about horror movies and horror
Hmm.
stuff. They talked about a Shadows over Innsmouth adaptation that was
Yes.
in pre-production but never got released.
Yeah.
That sounded interesting. And
Yes.
it feels to me like Shadows over Innsmouth, there is a perfect film to be made of it.
Yeah.
I've not seen it, and that could just be because I've not
Hmm.
done my research. But I don't know. I'm struggling to think of any good examples at all, to be honest. Is there anything you can think of?
Reanimator is always a good laugh.
Okay, right, sure. With Jeffrey Combs.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. When he's not being everyone in Star Trek. Yeah, Jeffrey. Reanimator's great. The sequels are just a laugh. It's fine. I think my favorite is, it's a terrible name, but also a great name, Castle Freak from like 95, which is an adaptation of The Outsider, which is like a 10-page story.
Right, okay.
But it falls into that, it falls in line with the rest of Full Moon Entertainment's catalogue, where
Okay.
the CEO of the company owns a castle in Italy. Therefore, every film is going to be a castle in Italy.
Okay.
But again, it's Jeffrey Combs. Castle Freak, I think it's 95.
Okay.
Is
No, I'm not familiar with that at all. That sounds interesting, that.
it's very good. It's got that really nice Stuart Gordon mixture of, it's a ghost story. It's kind of a classy horror. We're not committed to the bit entirely, so here's some blood and guts and some tits, and here's a bittersweet kind of sad ending, but some people survive.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just, it's a weird little blip on their radar in that
Right.
it doesn't devolve into the soft porn it normally does with their stuff. It's considering it's called Castle Freak, it's all right.
Well, yeah, I mean, but then this is the thing, I suppose, isn't it? Is that Lovecraft, there's a lot of really interesting stories, great stories.
Hmm.
But and same with other horror short story writers like M.R. James.
Hmm.
Like the Emma James adaptations that are the best
Hmm.
are all of the short BBC
Yes.
Ghost Story for Christmas adaptations,
Hmm.
right? Because you can do a very little intimate kind of like story about a single character more
Hmm.
often than not
Yeah.
who sort of goes down a pathway they shouldn't go down, and then there's a regrettable end.
Yes.
That's kind of not every Lovecraft story, but that's kind of what a lot of the best Lovecraft stories
Yes.
do, or a good number of them. And that's very hard to make into a movie.
Hmm.
So, like a show, like a Lovecraft stories for Christmas is
Yes.
kind of the thing you want, I think. I think Del Toro, Guillermo del Toro was working on a Mountains of Madness movie at one point.
Back
Which
on apparently.
is it?
Yeah, he has a his initial deal with Netflix like 10 years ago, I think, which took him off some other projects, was he had like a three or four project deal, and
Right.
his little cabinet of curiosities thing that he did a couple of years ago, which I thought was exceptionally imperfect and I really liked it. I think
Right.
that's one of them, and that was
Okay.
that was kind of like testing the waters to see whether his name would draw a dime, and whether that kind of thing would sit on the platform. And I think it did. It was very hype. A lot of people were talking about it. So I think Netflix is still back in that Mountains of Madness.
Okay. Well, that's fun because that is a more cinematic story that
Oh
could
yeah,
do quite well
yeah.
as a film. But yeah, I mean, this film takes a story that is essentially how did a load of people
Mhm.
go mad and mutate,
Mhm.
you know, and then turns that into a compelling sort
Yes.
of, increasingly despairing sort of
Mhm.
series of events.
Yes.
We're following Cage's character.
Mhm.
The actual arrival of the meteor, I think,
Mhm.
is a really cool scene. You
Mhm.
see the different members of the family in the house, what they're
Yes.
up to at the time.
Mhm.
You get, it uses this sort of pinky kind of purpley light to represent the color outer space. I mean, it's easier, I think, to describe a color that is indescribable than to show it, I
Yeah,
guess.
I can't remember. I can't remember the wording exactly, but they used a specific shade of color that cannot physically exist within nature or something like that
Right,
to make it more abstract. Obviously, magenta exists,
right.
but um, yeah, they used a color that just doesn't really belong naturally anywhere, so that
Okay, that's interesting.
everything about it feels off against a rural landscape.
Sure, it does. Yeah, and it's a lurid color. It's
Hmm.
very, it's kind of it it's very in your face in that
Hmm.
environment, in that
Yes.
space. And you instantly start getting like weird bugs popping up, and then later on
Yeah.
there's weird. I think it's the cat that is mutate. Is it the cat or is it a
Yes. Yeah. The
yeah?
cat mutates. I think that's Tommy Chong's cat.
Right. Yes,
Who's the
that's right.
hermit that lives out in the fucking Tommy? What are you doing here? What are you, look at Cheech and Chong in
Yeah. Which is quite nice, sort of casting in terms of just because he's the character's a bit of an out there sort of free
yeah,
thinking chap who's just sort of living his life, so it kind of works in that regard as well.
yes, it does. But there's again, you're scrolling down that list. Richard Stanley, fuck yeah. Nicolas Cage, what is going on? Tommy Chong, okay. This is either going to be the worst thing I've ever seen or the best thing, but I am going to have a great time. Yeah. Uh, so yeah, it's Tommy Chong's cat that gets mutated. But
Right.
big shout out, Lovecraft Pop. You got to have a weird cat in there.
Of course. Well, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah,
So
the actual members of the family all sort
mm,
of start to lose their minds essentially in their own unique ways.
yeah, and it's a lovely setup with all this. It's Richard Stanley's wheelhouse is slow and character and things are completely stationary for a while, and
Mm.
it's all character work, and then there's just a inciting incident of just horrid stuff, and then it's people that you've learnt to know then have to deal with it.
Mm.
He's quite good at telling you everything about a character enough so that when something horrible happens, you understand how valuable that transformation is. For a film that's all about transformation,
Yeah.
it's really well done. Like there's uh I can't remember her name now. What's Lavinia? Lavinia, that's it.
Sure. Yes. The daughter.
Yes. Yeah, the daughter.
Yeah.
Her whole gimmick is that I want to leave this boring place. I don't like this house. My family kind of suck, even though they're all right. I want to leave. So that when you have a transformation at the end, where she actually just point blank says down the camera, "No one's leaving."
Mm.
It's quite impactful. Nicolas Cage does some acting.
He does a lot of acting.
He does a lot of acting. His whole thing for the start of the film is that he's terrified of becoming his father, like the hereditary big Lovecraft theme, the sins of past gene pool coming to revisit. He mocks his father with a voice that he does,
Mm.
and then later becomes his own father in his father's house, and it is seen as kind of terrible overacting, but he's doing his impersonation from
It
earlier of his
works.
father. It works.
Yeah.
It works. Completely works as
Yeah.
long as you understand the rules. And again, the mum who is persistently in the attic with an outside line to the world,
Yeah.
then gets put in the attic in a different way and
Sure.
isn't
Yeah.
allowed to leave the attic. Uh, it's a character film as much as it is like a sci-fi horror film. It's really well done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually quite like that from the very start of the film.
Mhm.
You get the dynamics between Cage and inadvertently or coincidentally another
Mhm.
Jolly Richardson performance.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so which is a fun connection between this and Event Horizon.
Mhm.
But yeah, so she's recently had a mastectomy. and
Hmm.
they're sort of struggling through that in their marriage and in their
Hmm.
relationship. And like you say, they've moved into
Hmm.
the deceased father's house to sort of get some distance from the
Hmm.
world. But
Yeah.
she's trying to get back into the world and find her way back, and that's what she does through her work. So there's like
Yes.
an interesting dynamic within the family to start with.
Yes.
And then you've also got like so Lavinia is I think she is sick as well, or is worried about being sick, and certainly is
Yes.
worried about her mum's sickness. Like,
Hmm.
so all of that is like part of her story,
Hmm.
and you get the external factor is the surveyor, so Ward Phillips, I think
Hmm.
they called him, which is neat
Yes.
little.
It's cute.
Yeah, it's very cute. He's the external element that comes in and meets Lavinia and sort of
Hmm.
tests the water literally,
Yes.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
discovers that
Yeah.
okay, the meteorite has done something weird. Don't be drinking this.
Don't drink the water. Yeah.
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 Um,
He's. We should probably talk about our boy Ward Phillips
yeah.
because he's in a hidden fortress and R2-3PO kind of way. He's our narrator. He is our
Hmm.
storyteller, which is just interesting. It's very interesting. I don't think it was done for certain reasons. I think it was at some point there was a conversation where Richard Stanley probably said HP Lovecraft would look at this choice and he would hate it
Mm,
because Lovecraft, especially in probably in the last 20 years, has been it's understood that he is quite a problematic person historically.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, like I remember 20 years ago, I read the horror of Red Hook, and I didn't understand what he was talking about. And I read it as like that is scary. That was a good story. And then it was only when this film came out and I started digging back into him and reading essays about him as a person, I understood what the horror of Red Hook was about. And
Right.
he was talking about Red Hook, New York, and I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that is difficult.
It is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the choice of Ward Phillips, the casting in this, uh, I think he gives a great performance
Mhm.
as someone who is just kind of intersecting all of the other characters' stories and interacting with them, and he is the outsider that sees their downfall and their confusion because they are losing track and perception of time
Mhm.
and day and night, and their connection to the outside world is lost. And he intermittently comes back and is ultimately our survivor in the finale.
Yeah.
I think it's just I think interesting is the word. It's an interesting choice for him to be your narrator
Yeah.
when historically the narrator of these stories
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
had
No,
a,
I think that's
yeah,
a very good point, actually. Yeah. Because I think it is fair to say, and I don't think anyone could challenge it, that H.P. Lovecraft was a racist, right? And a
yes,
lot of his fear of the other and the
hmm,
external, these things he didn't understand, a lot of it came from a deep seated fear of people
hmm,
of other races, and
yes,
that racism fueled it.
yes,
Fortunately for us, in a way,
hmm,
that those stories and the sort of
hmm,
if you take those external
hmm,
forces, these insidious dark forces,
hmm,
as being space aliens and
yes,
cosmic horrors,
yes,
they are really interesting and good
yes,
stories and scary. Some of them, it's inescapable. You can't
hmm,
get away from where Lovecraft lived, sadly. But a
yes,
lot of them you can divorce to an extent
hmm,
from that regrettable
hmm,
element and still have a really interesting and
yes,
scary and
yeah,
worthwhile story. And this film, I think, does that
yes,
with that. And yeah, there's a redemptive element, I
hmm,
suppose you could say, by having a black actor play
hmm,
the narrator and sort of being the window into the story. Maybe
yes,
it does help distance it a little bit in a good way
yes,
from those elements. So yeah, I think it is a really interesting choice, and I'm
hmm,
certain there will have been conversations whilst
yes,
they were making it about that,
yeah,
which I get would be dead interesting to that's one of the things where you would
hmm,
want Richard Stanley to sort of elaborate, and maybe he has, and I've not seen it,
yeah,
but that would be a really interesting conversation to have with him. I think about like that choice because it does
yeah,
provoke this conversation that we're having now. So yeah, it is
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. It was when I first watched it in 2019. The first thing that pops into my head was uh, this is a black guy who's telling a story. He's maintains his sanity throughout it. He's well
Mm.
spoken and he's educated, which is the polar opposite of how Africans and African Americans in Lovecraft stories are represented.
Sure.
Completely the opposite, to the point where you're reading this text in the books and you feel a little bit dirty because he's written everything phonetically, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, this is difficult. I like Phillips, man. This is a great story and I love you, but holy shit, you needed to get outside, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it works well in this film, and he is.
Mm.
I think his performance is good, and his role
Yes.
in the story is good. And
Hmm.
yeah, it is because it's all too easy, I think, to have a character, an external character who can see these things and sort of hide, like it's kind of what we were saying before about Event Horizon.
Hmm.
There's a danger that the
Hmm.
actions of the people who are within the sort of horror
Hmm.
will come across as foolish or
Hmm.
stupid.
Yeah.
Like, why are you climbing down a well, mate?
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
But because we've got this external view and we can see how much things are being
Hmm.
warped and sort of broken,
Yes.
it does help to say, well, this no one's in their right mind. None of
Yeah.
the family are in their right mind.
Yeah.
Almost immediately, they don't realize it yet, but they're sort of corrupted from when the meteor
Yeah.
lands.
Yeah.
Essentially, they all witness it. It affects
Hmm.
them all that very night,
Hmm.
and from that point, things start to spiral out of control.
Yes.
And yeah, Ward is the only person who kind of sees it,
Yeah.
doesn't really see it until it's too late.
Yeah.
But I do quite like the coda at the end where he's just, I'm certainly not going to be drinking this water that there's in the
Yes.
reservoir.
Yeah.
Um, rightly so.
Which I think is the direct lift from the book. In fact, I
Right.
think
Yeah.
the intro voiceover he does and the top and tail dialogue that he has is I think that's directly lifted from the book with a few words changed, and it's so atmospheric. Those opening shots of trees
Mm.
with the direct lift from the book is how it feels to read Lovecraft for the first time. Is that it feels like that you shouldn't have that book. He's managed to conjure up the feeling of the books he talks about and the knowledge he talks about in
Mm.
the way he writes things, and I think they translated that really nicely. So let's have a chat about how I guess the color out of space starts to affect our characters and distort things, because we could go to third act and
Hmm.
we could talk about like the horrible Dunwich horror shit in the attic, but obviously it's a real nice slow burn in just little inconsistencies and weird things, like pairing Nicolas Cage up with alpacas is a bonkers choice, but they're there as a plot device, kind of to show the misrepresentation of time to a
Mm.
degree. There's even a nice little thing where he says, I've got to take your mum to hospital because she's cut her fingers off. She's gone a bit crazy. Put the alpacas away. And he gets back, and the alpacas have not been put in their barn. And but you see it happen on screen, I think. And it just shows how out of step everything becomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that as well because that is one of the first real moments of the sort of time
Hmm.
dilation that happens in this
Hmm.
movie where it seems like it's been a couple of minutes to one
Hmm.
person, it's been hours to another,
Yeah.
it's days almost to a third
Yeah.
person. So you get this really weird, time, it literally stops making sense.
Hmm.
And they use just the cuts between characters in different locations.
Yes.
That normally when you're watching a film, we all just accept the sort of how time works in a movie and how
Yes.
cuts can represent time. And in many cases, cuts represent no time at all.
Yeah.
But in this film, they go to the hot because I mean you get that incredibly shocking, really well done moment when Jolie Richardson accidentally chops her fingers off, is not even paying attention,
Hmm.
and it's just a shocking bit of violence.
Hmm.
They go to the hospital, and then yeah, you get this weird. It's just strange. They're at the
Yeah.
hospital, but they're there all night, but then they're also not somehow. And then
Yes.
they're back soon, but not it just none of the timeline from that point on really makes any sense.
Yes.
But that's good. That's on
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
purpose, and it
Yeah.
absolutely speaks to just this is the color affecting them now.
Yes.
They're they're already too far gone. This
Hmm.
is just one bit of evidence.
Yeah.
I think the I was just going to move into the real body horror stuff
Hmm. Yeah.
that really like ramps it up. So
Yes.
you get like just really horrific sequence where the color comes out of the well,
Hmm.
and the color just it hits the mum and it hits the youngest child
Hmm.
and it fuses them together. And
Yes.
that it is absolutely horrendous.
Yep.
It's the special effects incredible. It looks
Yep.
so uncomfortable, so
Hmm.
gross.
Yep.
There, I mean this is where you get into the sort of again the warp and the 40K and the
Hmm.
chaos and mutation of it all
Yeah.
because it's really uncomfortable stuff
Hmm.
to look at and to watch.
Yes.
Um, and that's exactly what I think we take it for granted when because we see Nurgle
Hmm.
and like mutants, chaos mutants, spawns of chaos
Hmm.
wandering about on the battlefield all the time.
Yep.
Just how horrendous these things actually would be to see.
Yes.
They would break your brain instantly just seeing them.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is what Lovecraft's all about. It's
Yeah,
people see a thing, brain breaks.
yeah,
Experience thing, brain breaks. The only person in this film, like, who seems to, I mean, he doesn't survive it, but Tommy Chong, his brain is already gone, so he just stays the same throughout. But, uh, but yeah, it's crushing body horror stuff. Like
yeah.
that hour that we spent getting to know our characters, and this kind of doesn't come out of nowhere. It's set up nicely to
Mm.
really hit you in the gut. Like the past half an hour, the kid has been referring to the thing in the well as his friend, and
Yeah,
they whistle to each other and talk to each other. And it's clearly talking to the kid because the kid's laughing at jokes that no one else can hear and stuff. And then it does that to him. So it's not his friend.
yeah,
Um, but it takes the thing that the Jolie Richardson has been talking about, which is she sees herself as deformed and monstrous and unattractive given the condition and the surgery she's had. It's mentioned a few times. And Nicolas Cage pretty much says, I think at one point, if you were gross and had no legs, I would still love you, that kind of thing. And that comes full circle here.
mm,
And you basically watch Nicolas Cage completely unhinged, trying to keep his family together,
yeah,
but with no perception of time and no perception of who he is anymore. And he's doing weird impressions of his dad with the flamboyant hands and doing a funny voice. And it's silly, but the whole thing is so fucking tragic that you can't laugh at it. You just sit there like, oh my God. I think I texted you. I was like, I forgot that the film shifted into this gear. Holy Christ.
because it does. It ramps up, and
Mm.
that third act like escalation,
Hmm.
and it built because it layers on top of
Hmm.
thing on top of thing on top of thing. We get all of
Hmm.
the different characters going through all of their different horrendous
Hmm.
events, and it doesn't let up. Once you get
Hmm.
into that final sequence, it gets more and more horrifying.
Hmm.
And sure, there's stuff that's like literally body horror and sort of is
Hmm.
just gross to look at. The special effects
Yeah.
work very well for that.
Yeah.
You get the psychological elements, you get the
Hmm.
tragedy, you get a lot of these things that are happening. I think it works really well on that kind of cosmic horror
Oh,
front
yeah.
because it is like everything that happens is so uncomfortable and
Hmm.
inexplicable. It it is nonsense in a way, but
Hmm.
like you say, it's all tying back to the
Yeah.
character roots. So
Yes.
it's exploding these kind of internal
Yes.
like issues they had at the start of the
Yeah.
movie, which is what makes it work, I think, as a movie.
Hmm.
Um, because it's unrelentingly bleak by the end.
Yeah.
It doesn't look it because of the color is so vibrant and
Hmm.
all that sort of stuff. But it's a proper bleak tragedy.
Yes.
Um, but there is enough compelling elements to it because you
Yeah.
do care about these characters. It's unfortunate what happens to
Yeah.
them. To put it mildly.
Yes. Yes. Completely. It's just the pinnacle Lovecraft storytelling is wrong place, wrong time.
Mm.
Like you looked through a door you shouldn't have looked through. You read a book you shouldn't have read. I think I can't remember who he was talking to, but it was a letter correspondence, I think, with Robert E. Howard, and he was saying the people in my stories are not victims of choice; they're victims of stepping on their front doorstep, kind of thing.
Right.
and it's no one in this film is really at fault. A meteorite landed in their back garden, and within a split second, the events were predetermined. It had them.
Yeah.
They were going to end horribly, essentially. One of the really interesting things is when the son goes down into the well because he thinks the dog is down there,
Mhm.
and we actually get to see what not what the color is, but potentially where it comes from, and we
Right.
see the reality the reality of what the color is, and you see this vast alien landscape of just complete like Zinchian nonsense,
Yeah.
but again has its own logic with some humanoid made structures we recognize, things we can kind of latch onto, but they shouldn't be together, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's an interesting choice. I can't. Is that? Do you remember if that's in the short story? I don't recall. Like, do
I
you see anything like that? It's
Not
it's
explicitly,
right
I
because
don't think.
again, it's such a difficult. It's kind of like in Event Horizon when you're seeing these
Hmm.
glimpses of the world beyond this other
Yeah.
dimension. It's very very hard to craft something that is like as horrific as one would imagine it would
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
Like because you're actually shaping it and giving it form
Yeah.
by putting it on screen.
Yes.
It does work, and I think it's a good moment, and it's a
Hmm.
horrifying moment as you're coming to the conclusion of the movie.
Yes.
And I think all the stuff in the well is really good because again, you are like, well, don't go down the well. Come on, don't go down the well, mate.
Mate, I know it's your dog, but don't do it. I'd do that for my cat, but no, don't do it for a dog. Don't do it for a dog, mate. It's not worth it.
But yeah, it's also he's not the kid is not he's not himself anymore. Like
No, no.
he's not in control. But yeah, you have this sequence that is like, okay, it's just very alien. It's
Hmm.
and I don't mean the movie. I just
Hmm.
mean the concept. It
Yes.
is just
Yeah.
so it's the color itself,
Hmm.
whatever it is, wherever it came from.
Yeah.
It's just it is not of our
Yeah.
Earth essentially, and that's what you get from that little sequence. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You get something that completely defies any understanding you have of how things work.
Mhm.
And that just like 20-second sequence, if that, probably maybe even 10. It's just a landscape shot ultimately. It's weird enough, and then it leaves, and then it's done, and you're back to your characters. And once you make that connection of what this thing is kind of doing, it might not even, it's just kind of existing in a well. It might not even be intentionally doing anything.
Mm.
It just arrives, fucks shit up, and then ultimately leaves, I think. And we've got, by the end of the film, Nicolas Cage has binned all of his rotten tomatoes because it's making weird stuff grow in his tomato patch. The alpacas are fucked. They're
They're the
done.
thing now.
They're the thing. Yeah. He kills the thing in the attic, which is his son and his wife.
Mhm.
Whilst really well done again. Ward Phillips is back with the town sheriff, and we're then seeing stuff. This is why I'm saying even though he's in maybe like 5% of the film, he is our narrator because he turns up to the most absurd moments
Mhm.
to kind of ground the film, and we see things through his perspective on how crazy it is. He comes back in and he's like, what is actually happening? And then Nicolas Cage walks in and just double barrels the kid and the mum monster thing.
Yeah.
And then the sheriff and Ward just stand there like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, I get like the fingers. It's just it's a moment of very sudden, shocking
Hmm.
violence.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh, and then we meet up with Tommy Chong again at the end of the film.
yeah, yeah,
As Ward and the sheriff are like, we got to get anyone who's left has got to get out of here. And they go and check on Tommy. And Tommy has been there. It looks like, again, distortion of time. He's been there hundreds of years and he's
yes,
mummified and sat listening. This was a nice touch. It got an audio guy pop out of me. He's listening to tape recordings of his own logs of what has happened.
right.
And it echoes the words that he first said to them when they got there to check he was all right. And he's made recordings. And he says he's got this weird sound on Memorex, which is a nice touch because the Memorex advertising in the 80s was, you've got it on Memorex, which meant that if you were using Memorex tape, what you had was infallible
Right.
and it was never going to degrade. And Memorex was like complete permanent preservation. The tape quality was that good. And the tape is still looping around potentially 300 years later in this warp time bubble of
Oh
his own
wow.
voice playing. It's such a cute little touch, man.
That's great. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice little setup, nice little payoff for anyone that's paying attention. It's like, oh, yeah, you said a thing, and now we're come back around. You found time to pay off on that Memorex joke. Well done.
That's great. Yeah,
Yes,
I was not aware of any of that. That's really cool.
it's
I like
cute.
that.
Yeah, it's very cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sheriff gets a bit of a rough deal just as they're leaving because he gets
hmm
grabbed by like a tree or something in a tree.
Only part of the film I don't like this.
Right. Okay. Well, you just because it's what too full on. Well, what about it doesn't?
I think because we've got so much abstraction
Mm.
and it's so committed to the bit for like 2 hours, and then Monster Tree grabs him and stabs him, and I'm like, I mean, we've just seen Tommy Chong die by time and mummification, which is peak color out of space at this
Mm.
point. That feels so fitting with the universe. And then we get Evil Dead Tree with the sheriff. Like, don't get me wrong, it's cool.
I
It's
can
it's
see what you mean. Yeah, no, so
yeah,
I don't mind it. I don't mind it myself.
yeah,
Because to me, it speaks to just like the randomness and the ends
yeah.
to which everyone, like, or more or less, everybody's death is different. Is enacted differently over the
hmm
course of the movie, and they
yeah.
are kind of random in many ways.
hmm
So I'm not too concerned about it. I can see what you mean though, and that's a
hmm
fair shout. And because it is a bit, maybe it's a sudden special effect for the sake of it. Um, and it is kind of Evil Dead-y. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
It feels, compared to all the other deaths, it feels very malicious, very motivated, and very uh, targeted
Mm,
to a person, if that makes sense, where everything else just kind of feels like a byproduct of this thing sitting in the well.
sure. I suppose it's a convenience as well, isn't it? Because you
Yes.
want Ward to be the only survivor.
Yeah.
So it's just an easy way to get rid of a characteristic. So, oh well,
hmm
the tree grabs him.
Tree grabs him, tree stabs him, something like that. Yeah, that'll do. Just get rid of the imposing man with the shotgun, please. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. But the actual sort of final, the conclusion, because there's this moment where it kind of seems like you said before,
hmm
Lavinia, maybe she could be saved. I mean, she's had a rough ride herself, and she's
hmm
kind of been trying to use that. I think she uses the Necronomicon at one point to try and
Oh
commune
yeah,
with
the, the
with stuff.
the 1976 Necronomicon,
Sure.
which I
Yeah.
have on my shelf as well. It's a nice touch. Also got the
um,
also got the tattoo as well.
okay. Well, yeah, but she goes a step further, right? And she's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
like like engraving it into herself, right? It's pretty rough.
yeah.
But yeah, it kind of seems like maybe Ward could get through to her, save her,
hmm
perhaps. But ultimately, like you say, she commits to the family after
Yes.
the house and is just like, no, I'm not leaving. I'm never going to leave.
Yeah.
Um, and then Ward kind of there's a bit of an action beat where he's sort of trying
hmm
to escape from the house and the
hmm
color and everything's kind of going off.
hmm
Again, maybe a bit of a convenience to get to the sort of blasted Heath kind of
Yes.
end of the story. Yeah, I still think it works though. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
this is where I'm, because it's not just Nicolas Cage running around with a shotgun.
hmm
That's part of it.
Yeah.
But the entirety of it doesn't just become that in the same way it did for Sam Neill,
hmm
where like all of the evil is just in him.
Yes.
Here, wild Nicolas Cage is just
hmm
one of many things
Yes.
that's kind of going
Yeah. Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. And he escapes to the basement, the family wine cellar, uh, which I think might be in the book. I'm not sure. Escapes to the wine cellar while Nicolas Cage is trying to get in, and essentially, visual and sound, noise, all sensory stuff happening at once, culminates in a big old just white out explosion. Blasted Heath, as you call it. I like that.
I
And
think that's what
everything,
Lovecraft called it as well. Yeah.
right? Nice. And it's a peak Lovecraft ending in that everything is kind of erased, and it's hammered home in the voiceover at the end, where there is nothing left of this quite lovely little family with their difficulties, but you've been with them on their difficulties. There's nothing left of them. He is the only storyteller, but no one's going to believe him. There's no evidence. There's no physicality. It's just a smouldering crater in the ground, essentially, that has been replaced with white. Quite poignantly, everything is just white, no colour, no more. And it's peak Lovecraft ending. Just no one is saved. No one really gets anything positive out of the experience. It's just forgotten, and it will probably happen again. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's not even like anyone learned anything. It's not like because there are storytellers and versions of a story like this where the Ward Phillips character would then have a shotgun and he'd be loading it with rock salt, and he'd be like, right now I hunt colors from outer space around the world, like that, and you end on that note. Here, and this is something I could live without in the film. Here, it does end. It ends with that sort of sadness, the melancholia, and the sort of the only thing he's learned is that this land is not safe because of what's happened. It's been tainted. I'm not going to drink the water. That's me out. Then you do get a little insect flying by. One of the mutated insects from the start of the film. I don't need that myself.
Yeah, the fucking alligator egg in the sewer at the end of a giant alligator film. Don't need that, mate.
Yeah, yes, or the Godzilla '98, and there's just like an egg in New York or whatever. Those kinds of things they work. They're fine. In this case, I think the cosmic horror is there, whether or not you see it like embodied in a bug.
Yeah,
like he carries it with him. It's underneath the water.
Yes.
I was just thinking, would I have preferred it if it was like a little bit of the color in the water? But I don't even think I need that. I think we know it's still there. We know it's what it's done, and we know he's right to be like, I'm not going to drink that water. But also, that's not going to save him either. If whatever it is comes for him as well, it's going to get him because it gets everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm picking it. It's not a problem. It's just a little note at the end.
That's not bad. I mean, there's one thing in this film I don't like, and there's one thing in this film that you don't like, and they're both completely inconsequential to the other 2 hours, 10 minutes. It's like, well, if that's the worst thing you can fucking say about this weird Nicolas Cage Lovecraft adaptation with Tommy Chong in it, whatever, man.
Absolutely, yeah. One thing, it's not in the movie itself, but the poster, or one of the posters at least, I think is really nice. I think it does a really good job. And like the cover.
Is that the one with the Nick Cage face on it?
Yeah, the Cage face. Yeah. It's just, and they use color really well. Because again, as soon as you're like, well, this movie is about an impossible color from space that like corrupts and damns everybody.
Yeah.
How do you visualize that? And I think they do a pretty good job.
Yeah, and also it's not marketed as anything other than what it is, which is quite a bold move for a very slow burn cosmic body horror thing. The cover, I hadn't seen the cover until I actually went back to watch this film last week and was like, yeah, that's pulpy. That looks like it could be on the cover of Weird Tales like 100 years ago. That's spot on. Everything about it is so committed to what it is meant to be. And I love that about it. And I think it quite possibly, let us know in the comments if you think I'm wrong. If you're still here, 2 hours, 4 minutes in on my record. I think it is probably the best Lovecraft film going. I know there's stuff like the Andrew Lehman 2006 Silent Cthulhu film, which is good, but that is, I don't mean to cheapen it when I say this, but I think it's a gimmick film in that they've made a silent film in 2006. Yeah, I think it is the best Lovecraft adaptation. The Lehman one was very good, but it was what it was. This feels like they've taken a contemporary filmmaking stance on it, and as we discussed earlier with the casting of Ward Phillips, they have dragged it into the 21st century. They've not made a big deal out of it, but they have done a lot of things under the bonnet, and they've just really fucking nailed it. They've nailed it, and I think apart from maybe Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth on Xbox, I think this is probably your cleanest adaptation your best adaptation. As much as I like Castle Freak, it's a fucking movie called Castle Freak. Yeah. What about yourself? How do you think it kind of stacks up in terms of um, this just I suppose the slurry of shite that a lot of Lovecraft films have been?
I think it's great. And I think what I'm learning is that there's a lot of Lovecraft films I've not seen and that I need to go away and educate myself on. So I'm taking a little mental list here of stuff to Castle Freak very high on my watch list now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like as a film, just as a film, I think it's really good. I think it's a really interesting exploration of something that's very hard to capture, cosmic horror and like a not evil, but a sort of malicious in a way color from space. Yeah, that's pretty. That's high concept, I suppose.
Yes,
I would say.
Yeah,
and I think it does a really good job of humanizing that and making that into an interesting story. There's a lot of excesses in it, whether that's Cage's performance or some of the special effects sequences and stuff like that. But they work to sell it. So yes. I'm fully on board. I think this is great, and I actually think as a pairing with Event Horizon, tackling in a very different way, sort of a similar kind of like concept and its effects on people in some ways.
Yes.
I think there's an interesting little, I think we've looked out in our Jolie Richardson double bill, to have found two movies that actually, they tackle things that cross over with Warhammer through the same, the intersection being the warp and the unknowable and horror that can kind of, cosmic horror and how the Chaos Gods manipulate that and use that and what that does to humans. These two films explore that as 40K explores it, as Warhammer Fantasy explores it. And they're really interesting. And they both are worthwhile horror movies that I think will... Event Horizon's already stood a certain amount of like time test. I think Color Out of Space will stand that test of time as well.
Yeah.
We could be having this conversation again in 20 or 30 years, and I think it's both still be really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there with their completely polar opposite films tackling completely similar I guess themes, contexts, and how they do it differently is you could watch them side by side and you'd have a great time. I think probably watch Event Horizon second to cheer yourself up a little bit. But I think when I watched Color Out of Space for the first time, I was having like a triple movie bill. Can't remember what the first one was. Watched Color Out of Space and then watched Joker after it, and I was like, I'm just ready to not be conscious right now. I am not okay.
Well, I mean, that sounds like the perfect way to bring it to a close, Dave.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and for joining us to chat about horror films that have a hint of Warhammer to them. I think we talked about Warhammer once or twice in between everything else.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, just the tip of Warhammer, just the tip. Just the tip one. Yeah. But I think we should do it again, mate. I think we should do it again. I think it might be quite nice. I mean, yesterday I was thinking, if I could have another pop with Jordan, what would I do? And I would like to do Hardware and Dust Devil from Stanley's back catalogue because I think they're so relevant to the time. But then I thought to myself, we should because like not only economically is it intrinsically tied to Warhammer, it's. I mean, they just borrowed a lot, didn't they?
I mean, mate, listen. We can tease that there may yet be a future episode where we get together and we talk about some of this stuff. Feels like that would take us all day, which I'm not against, but we'd have to clear the diaries, I think. So we'll find out. We will find out.
Yeah, good stuff. No, thank you for having me back on. It's been good. It's always nice to just chat movies with Jordan Sorcery, to be honest. Hector's been very quiet in the background. I think he's fallen asleep. Yeah, he's asleep.
Too scared. Yeah. They're just too scary.
Oh, he loves a horror film. He loves a horror film. Sometimes I cover his eyes when it's something a little bit raunchy and a little bit smutty, but he's fine with cosmic horror. For a brain that big, he can handle the cosmic.
Massive thanks again to Dave Walker from MS Paints for joining me on the Warhammer Film Club. If you want even more Warhammer cinematic magic, check out the rest of the season and patreon.com/Jordan Sorcery for episode outtakes and more research about the films and their connections to Warhammer history.